now it's time for story time with Phil and Zaz. Tonight's bedtime story is The Lumberjack's Beard. It's sort of a theme. We had already picked it, but it actually fits well with Robin's prayer request tonight. So I think it should be good.
And people living in poverty, because a lot of people living in poverty don't have proper houses.
That's very true, Zaz. That's very true. Grandma, here you go. Just making sure I'm not blocking your face with the book.
Like last time.
The Lumberjack's Beard by Duncan Beedie. Big Jim Hickory was a lumberjack. He lived by the forest in a little log cabin.
This is also a very Canadian story.
He had big burly shoulders and a big bristly beard. Every morning, he did limbering up exercises. It's very important to limber up if you're a lumberjack.
In this one, he kind of looks like a bear.
I thought he split his pants. I thought he was bending over the other way, but it's his belly. He does look a bit like a bear. Big hump on his back. After a hearty breakfast of pancakes and maple syrup, Jim slung his trusty axe over his burly shoulder and headed out into the forest.
I think the reason he looks like a bear is because his back legs are like tiny and his front legs are so big, and it's like his arms, front legs. I'm sorry, I was completely on bear mode there.
Chop, choppity chop went Jim's axe. Timber! Echoing through the valley as he felled tree after tree. After a long day of swinging, whacking, cleaving, and hacking, Jim headed back to his cabin. That evening, when he was just about to go to bed, he heard a peck, peckety-peck at the door. Jim looked down to see a small and very angry bird.
"I have just built my new nest in that tree," shrieked the bird, "and you've chopped it down."
Well, Jim scratched his chin, and then he had an idea. "Well, I suppose you could move into my beard," he said. "Very well then," said the bird.
The beard.
"Very well then," said the beard.
Very well then, said the bird.
Said the beard.
And in it flew.
That's like Daily Swords.
His beard looks like it could talk. The next morning, Jim woke up earlier than usual due to the birds chirping at the crack of dawn.
Like
He did his limbering up exercises, got dressed, and ate his breakfast with a little help from the new tenant, in his beard. Jim's next job was to strip all the branches and leaves from the tree trunks and burn them in a big bonfire. After a long day of chopping, snapping, burning, and crackling, Jim trudged back to the cabin for a well-earned rest. No sooner had he put away his axe than he heard a noise at the door. Scratch, scratchity scratch. He looked down to see a very angry porcupine. "I needed those leaves and pine needles to make a cozy shelter, but you've burned them." "Where am I going to live now?" snapped the porcupine. Well, Jim thought and scratched his chin. "Well," he said, "I suppose you could move into my beard." And he went down and the porcupine crawled in. The next morning, Jim woke up even earlier and attempted to do his limbering up exercises. He looked in the mirror and scratched his chin. Yow! He got porcupine quills in his fingers. He tried to eat his breakfast, but he lost his appetite when he noticed the bird poop on his shirt. Oh, sorry. Whack. Jim's job that day was to float all the tree trunks down the river to the lumberyard. One by one, he rolled the logs into the fast-flowing water.
But the lumberyard is right there. Couldn't he just like drag them over?
Have you ever dragged a log?
It'd be fast. Well, it would be faster to float it down the river, but I don't really get why. Like, you'd have to roll it into the river, and then you'd have to get it out of the river.
You're ruining the drama of the story.
I'm sorry.
How else would he get to meet the beaver if he didn't float the logs in the river?
Maybe he would accidentally swing one and break the dam.
After a hard day of lugging, splashing, rolling, and crashing, Jim staggered back to his cabin. Thwump, thwumpity thwump went his door. He looked down to see a very angry beaver on his doorstep. I spent all day building my dam, and it got smashed to bits by those logs you threw in the river.
You sound like Mr. Woodchuck.
It snarled without a word. Jim picked up the beaver and put it in his beard.
It's just like shove. It's like
Between the birds chirping, the porcupines prickling, and the beavers thwumping, Jim didn't get much sleep that night.
I don't see how it ain't woke you again.
He was too tired to do his limbering up exercises in the morning.
Why?
And the beaver's thwumping tail knocked his pancakes all over the floor.
Davy swords.
That's it, cried Jim. I can't take it anymore. You'll all have to move out today. But where can we live? Cried the animals. As Jim scratched his chin, he had a brilliant idea. He went into his bathroom, took out a razor, and began to shave off his big, bristly beard.
It probably took at least an hour because that beard looks like it's pretty thick.
Then he took the hair and piled it up on his porch, and the bird, the porcupine, and the beaver all moved in to their big, bristly new den. That night, Jim slept better than he had for some time. He woke up and did some particularly vigorous limbering up exercises.
More flexible than me.
And put a fresh plaid shirt on. Then he made an enormous tower of pancakes and maple syrup. Jim looked out the window at the bare ground where the forest used to be and scratched his now stubbly chin. Then he had another brilliant idea. Jim took his shovel and dug hole after hole after hole after hole, and planted tree after tree after tree after tree.
You should join the 10 Trees movement.
Jim's beard grew back over time, and the trees, they took quite a bit longer.
The beaver is listening to your iPod.
But it was worth the wait.
Probably like
The end.
10 years later or something. Cause like,
Say goodnight, Zephyra.
night.
You're supposed to say goodnight, Zephyra.
Good night, Zephyra.
Good night, Karen. Hey, Karen. Good night, Karen Lindsley. I'm just catching up on your story here, Karen. Yeah. Yeah, the things we take for granted. Did you see that? Robin has a bear that hangs out in her backyard.
What? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they
You
live
live
in a
on
pretty
an
wa-
acreage?
No, they live in BC. I want to say Prince Rupert, right? No, I think I got that wrong. Prince George. I think Prince George, BC. Good night, Grandma. Good night, Heidi. Good night, Auntie Lori. Good night, Karen and Robin. Good night, Heidi. Good night, Rose and Dave. Good night, Carrie and Curtis. Good night, Tyler. Good night, Pastor Heidi. Good night, Nana. Good night, Marie. Good night, Remy. Good night, Stuart. Good night, Alan. Good night, Devin. Good night, Carrie. Good night, Aaron and PD. Good night, Michelle. Good night, Joan. That reminded me of Frozen just now. Good night, Joan. Hang in there, Joan. Good night, Marilyn and Irene. Good night, Katika. Good night, everyone.